last week, OpenAI announced their ChatGPT Agent, which isn't a browser, but was supposed to be one because everyone thought they were going to announce a browser, but they didn't. And then we're going to compare that against Perplexity, Comet, and Dia, which is run by the browser company.
Starting with the AI browser wars in ChatGPT Agent, it basically can connect with any of the connectors that they have, like Gmail or Calendar or whatever it is, and they can like take control of like agentic workflows, for example. So some of the examples they gave were plan a breakfast. It was like specifically plan a Japanese breakfast and buy all the ingredients for me. So not only can it plan it, which is something you might traditionally ask ChatGPT, but then it can also go take action on your behalf. The way that they presented this was that it brings kind of three key parts of their different products together. So there's like operators' ability to interact with websites, deep research ability to synthesize information, and then ChatGPT's just like intelligence and conversational fluency, which is like what we traditionally interact with the most.
And because they combined all those different parts, like Operator and ChatGPT, they were able to do a lot better on benchmarks. Like it reached 41.6% on Humanities' last exam, which is the same benchmark of like crowdsourced difficult questions in different subjects that we talked about last week. And we're talking about how Grok 4 scored a 38.6% and how that was like best in class, but the benchmarks already moved with this release on July 17th, so like 4 days ago.
And I think a conversation a lot of people have been having was that the benchmarks are fine, like it is what it is, but we also need a way to test the agentic capabilities of it because that's what's actually important.
Yeah, they have an internal benchmark that's basically like what percentage of a junior investment banking analyst's work could ChatGPT Agent replace, which is funny because I feel like that's very related to our lives since like a lot of our friends are like junior investment bankers or like we had similar jobs as well. And they found that it was like 41% of an investment banker's like first year tasks. And I actually watched a video by Wall Street Prep, which is like one of the big companies that does like prep videos and help for like in people recruiting for investment banking. And they asked Agent to basically create like an LBO, which is like one of the more complicated financial models. And they said they had to prompt it like a few times to correct itself, but that its like result was completely accurate, which is basically 1-to-1 with a junior analyst, which you probably have to like correct and prompt anyways.
And on the other spreadsheet bench, like they are marking a human as having like 71%. So the fact that it's at 45, it's not like 45 versus 100. It's like 45 versus 71.
That makes sense. Yeah, and it can basically do like 3-statement financial modeling, LBO analysis, formatting, citations, like a lot of that PowerPoint stuff. And I will say, like, having worked in consulting, I feel like if you looked at like 10 of Bain's decks, like the formatting and even like some of the content is like very, very formulaic. Not that the information isn't different, like deck to deck, but in a way that like I think AI would be like very good at like pattern recognizing that.
I mean, there's a lot of competitors for PowerPoint presentations. Like there's Gamma. I don't know if you guys have used it, but there's like a bunch of slide generation apps, and I feel like OpenAI can just kill those.
I mean, it makes sense that a leading lab can kill one of those competitors just because a lot of times they'll focus on the model and then the product experience to them is just like really quick and easy to build. Like I think they built, like, for example, they built Codex in 8 days. And not saying that Codex like took out Cursor, it just shows the capability that they have to be able to create a competitive product in the market for like any domain. One thing that I was really curious about is why they didn't actually just make it a browser and why they kind of made it this whole like computer takeover thing. And a lot of people are like a little bit upset about this because they like kept saying that they would release a browser, they kept releasing a browser, but then in the end they released like just like a general agent for your computer. And I actually think this is like pretty smart of them because, and we can get into this later, but it's like the reasons why people want to go after the browser game have changed over time. A lot of it is due to data, for example. And I was thinking like, okay, why would they just go for your entire screen? Well, it's like all your data is on your entire screen. So to like let them kind of record that is actually even more powerful than just the browser.
I also think it's a question of like form factor. Like I feel like we're thinking about the browser in a way that like 50 years from now, everyone's going to be like, why was everyone worried about like what the next browser would be? Like I feel like the browser's form factor is based on like an archaic way of conveying information. Yeah. That like OpenAI might just have like thought about it, because like they hired a bunch of like ex-Chrome people, which is why people thought they were going to go after this in the first place.
Well, in their like press release tools, especially when they were talking about Codex, they were like, oh, I want GPT to just be like this agent that does everything for you in any sort of form factor. So it would be on your phone, it'd be on your laptop, and Codex wouldn't be like a separate product. It would be part of the product suite, but it would be like a tool that GPT uses. I now look back at their press releases and I see how they were kind of building up to this release, because they were in a way hinting that like they would never go after a browser. They would just go after like an all you can do agent, and this was that release. And what's so funny is that it came out on the same day that Astronomer's CEO like affair got like was made public, and so everyone was talking about how Astronomer's CEO just like took the day.
No, not a single person was talking about this.
No one was talking about it. It was crazy because it was supposed to like blow the market away, and then no one gave a shit at the end of the day.
Imagine like grinding on this and then someone's affair gets like
that gets publicized. For context, basically Astronomer's CEO and the head of HR were found having an affair at a Coldplay concert because they went on the Jumbotron.
It like sounds so insane when you say that.
And he has now stepped down from CEO.
Yeah. Wait, I feel like I for sure could have made money off that prediction market. Did you see the people that made like...
Yeah.
People made so much money.
No, I don't know. Like I saw it and I was like, I could see it either way. Because it's like an affair.
But it's like with his like chief people officer.
No, I mean,
like,
I agree he should have stepped down, but like I feel like you never know like how much a company cares
about them. Yeah.
Like I've never heard of Astronomer, and I feel like I'm never gonna hear of them again.
Well, we used Astronomer. I feel like it's like one of those. It's one of those like DevOps type of companies that you won't hear about unless you're a developer.
I'm not. So I was like, it's one of those companies that you don't hear about if you're dumb.
Well, I feel like it's the same reason why I don't know too much about Airtable.
Yeah, no, it does make sense.
Know?
It's like if it's in your workflow.
Yeah.
Well, going back to Agent, should we talk about their safety concerns? Because everyone's always talked about as AI develops agentic capabilities, safety becomes so much more important because, like, to Maya's point, they have access to all of your data and they can take like actions on that data. Like when you look at these, even like browsers, like the other browsers we're going to cover, like the access rights they get are like so long. So they like increase the level of preparedness that they think that the model should have under their preparedness framework to high capability in biology and chemistry.
Then they ran a bunch of tests on this too. They basically hire a bunch of PhDs to red team whatever model it is. But in this specific scenario, they found that when red teaming, there was 95% performance against visual browser like instructions, but that still means that 5% of the time they were able to get to the point where they could get instructions.
And that was after like the initial red teaming, which I think had like it had 16 incidences out of 110. So I think that's around like 14%. Yeah.
That's a really high number.
Yeah.
Really high.
Yeah, and then they went back and then they deployed a bunch of fixes, which were like some of the fixes actually do seem like they decreased the capability of the model in favor of safety. Like they enabled like a watch mode where like, let's say I can't be like, oh, sell my $100. Like I have to press that button myself. And they actually disabled the memory feature as well.
Which I feel like is really big. I mean, I think like OpenAI will enable memory for it at some point for sure. It's just a matter of like when that happens.
Might have had more than 8 days to build this compared to like Codex, but I do believe it was just like out of like whatever, like minimal scope.
Velocity.
Yeah. Velocity or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, and then we wanted to do a quick comparison against Comet and Dia. So Comet is Perplexity's browser. It's able to reference tabs for tasks like online shopping or comparison or summarize YouTube videos. The CEO said that it's supposed to transform browsers into operating systems of workflows. So he actually bought the os.ai domain to redirect that to Comet because he wants people to think of it as like an operating system, the next operating system, which kind of makes sense to your earlier point. The main ability is that like one can search like normal Perplexity can, but it also just like takes action. So it could, in theory, interact with your spreadsheets and Figma files. Although like the early results have showed that it's pretty flawed.
Yeah, it honestly reminds me, like both Perplexity, Comet, and Dia by the browser company remind me of like what Cluely's doing. Yeah. Because like, have you guys seen like product demos of Cluely?
Yeah.
I feel like it is just like this like sidebar AI thing that like moves with you into all of your browsers, which is like very similar to how I saw like Perplexity, Comet which is $200 a month, so I haven't used it myself.
Yeah, and people are excited about this. There's around 500,000 people on the wait list for Comet. And right now, because you said it's only released to the $200 a month tier, if all of those people were to pay that, they would be instantly a 1.2 billion ARR company. But obviously, I think those people are just on the wait list for the $20 tier, which is like 120 million. I think their last reported like ARR is around 70 million. So if all those people do end up paying $20 and those people are not part of their current base, they could definitely 2x their revenue, which is pretty good, but nowhere where they need to be at for their current valuation, which I think is like 13 billion or something.
Yeah, and their CEO also was talking about how they are very explicitly going after Google, which I thought was interesting because I feel like none of them pit themselves like one-to-one with anyone else usually. But I also think if there's ever a time to do it and like a place to do it, I think Chrome has traditionally had like such a stronghold and everyone kind of agrees that Gemini is clunky. And so I think like this is the time to go after them.
Yeah, I think he wants Perplexity Comet to be like installed as your default browser.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is where I'm like now seeing like OpenAI's release of the GPT agent. It's like, is Perplexity just almost being done by pigeonholing themselves just into the browser? Because for example, like there's so much I do on Notion on the Notion app and not within the Notion browser. Like I would never use like the web app version of Notion.
Oh,
Yeah,
I guess I
right?
do use mostly web apps.
It depends on like how much do you believe is outside of your browser? Like how much work do you think you do outside of your browser? And is that like that important for the next player?
But why can't, I don't think it's like that hard for Perplexity to just like launch a version that like lives, because you can already download Perplexity as an app, right? And then it'll just be like a version that like lives on your computer.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of like first mover advantage too. Let's say like OpenAI has like really good success with GPT Agent. People are downloading it, and they think of that as the first like desktop agent app that they use. Right, that will become like the initial like leading standard. It's kind of like how GPT-3 was like the first release, and everyone's like, "Wow, this is crazy." Rush to make better apps. I personally think GPT is like really slow, but like it is the most popularly used search app.
Yeah. And Perplexity's Comet will look at like 7 days of history at most if you opt in, but it doesn't really have a memory feature. That's more Dia, which I thought was interesting that like Perplexity, Comet, and Agent, which are probably the leading players, both are not saving your memory. Mm-hmm. The last thing I wanted to say was Dia is the browser company's browser, and they originally had Arc, which went like viral, and I'd say the tech community, similar to like how Superhuman might go viral.
Yeah.
And it was basically just supposed to be this like next gen browser that was like Chrome hasn't shipped a feature in so long, like use us. It's like very analogous to like the Superhuman pitch.
Yeah.
But I think like the ramp up to like become good at using that browser was like too high and people didn't care enough. Mm-hmm. So it kind of like failed, I guess, because like now they're like pivoting right to like Dia. But like when I listened to his interview, I thought it was really interesting because he kept bringing back like TikTok. Like I feel like the companies that a company compares themselves to, I find really interesting. He kept being like, oh, I want it to be like as addicting as your TikTok algorithm, which I think is like unique to the to the browser company over what like Perplexity or Agent are doing. And I wonder if that's because Perplexity and OpenAI don't feel like the AI safety is at a point where they can like comfortably do that yet. That's
like take all
guess.
your information basically and make it super personalized.
Yeah, like a lot of the stuff I've read, even just like online, like in tech Twitter, about like AI being dangerous or like ChatGPT being dangerous, all has to do with like memory, or a lot of it has to do with memory.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The other thing I would say is I feel like their number one priority is to make it work. Like it doesn't matter if it's personalized unless like the actual agent is able to complete the tasks. Like GPT and Comet are just being like, no, like we're going to completely change the way people think of using things, where you don't ever ask questions anymore. You just say, go do things, which I'm like on a theoretical level, I'm like slightly concerned because I feel like the only way you can make a decision is if you're curious about all the information. So as human beings, like, do we just become a less curious species? Or is Dia making a bet that like regardless if we have agents to do things for us, we will still be curious human beings and still want to just ask the questions and not have someone do stuff for us?
I think we are becoming less curious.
I also think like you can still ask the question to like Agent. I think they're just like making a bet that like the way we expect to receive information on our questions changes, but not that people stop asking the questions. You're trying to build product in like the missing area. And I feel like they're making a bet that the missing area is like, you can't ask OpenAI, like his model, to send an email for you, more so than like it's not a browser.
I think it's just the emphasis on what they put it on.
Yeah.
So we can go into why these companies are going into the browser game. If we just do a quick historical lesson, back in the 90s when the World Wide Web was released.
World Wide Web. She's going back in time.
Remember the one recording where Maya was like, back in 1272? We were like talking about like tariffs or something, and she was like, back when the first caveman traded a stick for a rock. I was like, what the fuck?
But so the World Wide Web was released, and it was just basically a rudimentary tool for displaying text and hyperlinks. And then there was a need for browsers to be able to actually get to those websites. And so you had Internet Explorer reaching a lot of traction because Microsoft always bundled it with Windows. So it was like the default thing that was like installed into Windows. Then you had Firefox kind of coming in as a strong contender until 2008 when Google decided to launch Chrome. And by 2012, it had surpassed Internet Explorer and it now commands over 65% of the global market share. And I think the biggest thing was that the Chrome team was really particular about the performance. So they made a new JavaScript engine to be able to deliver like faster search queries. So they identified as like this is like the key differentiator that they wanted. And the reason why they wanted it is because they wanted to just funnel everyone to Google search so that they could increase their ad search business. So they were just like, we're going to make Chrome a loss leader. We're not going to charge any money for it because we're going to make all that money back in ads. But the same model of thinking about browsers doesn't really apply to AI today anymore. Because the idea is that like if agents are going to go and do these things for you, you're not seeing the ads, if that makes sense. The agents are. And the agents might be a little bit more unbiased or biased. We don't really know how the ads game is going to play out in the browser world. So I think people are less worried about ads money now, but more about just data. And if building a defensible data moat from you browsing is going to be like worth the amount of money that they're putting into making these products.
One way I saw that ads can still be incorporated is by having like affiliate links basically. And so, which is so weird to think about because like we see sponsored links, but I feel like you're making the active decision to either click on it or not click on it. But if it's an agent, and I don't know exactly like how it would work, but it's like, let's say 80% of the time they end up clicking on this because someone's paying you to take that action. But then they provide like a shit product.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like interesting because those things are like very at odds with each other.
That's true. And then you can also make ads for agents.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you like optimized your ad for an agent to use you instead of others, or just like in general, you optimized your website for your agent to use you instead of others. I don't know. It's just like so
weird to think about.
It's like too many dimensions into the problem for me to really know what I think about it.
Yeah. Wait, this is like a side note, but yesterday I saw that Delta is changing their prices on tickets based on like what an AI thinks about you. So it's like personalized. Like Delta's doing pricing specific to you based on what an AI tells Delta that they think you'll pay for it. So like if you're someone that like clearly doesn't care, you'll just like book a ticket whenever. Delta's like gonna roll it out to 25% of their tickets by the end of this year and basically just like target you to make more money off of you.
Time to go incognito.
But I guess back to what you were saying about the data game, something I saw about like owning the browser is that you get like real-time data and it'll help you like train your models. But I'm curious like what you think about that.
I think the idea is that because we're hitting a public data wall, people are trying to get any access to data that they can. So like OpenAI acquiring Windsurf, not just for the product, but for the data, and all of these labs making their own products so they can understand user preferences. Right now, a huge part of making browser agents in the beginning is we had very little data on like people using their mouses and people like clicking on different things. Like we're still at a very early stage. Like I would say similar to what GPT-3 was like when we first asked it to like write an essay. Like it couldn't write an essay.
Yeah, like it was bad.
They're just trying to get access to that so that they can build the next leading browser agent. And so the question is like, is Perplexity trying to also build a browser agent themselves that is like better than one of the labs? Is Perplexity trying to be a lab themselves? I'm not super sure. My guess is it's going to be really hard for you to build a really powerful browser agent without having access to this data, because this data doesn't exist for other people.
So that you can start collecting that data, and then you can improve on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we haven't cracked in the AI model space is like continual learning. So there's no way to like learn and update your models real time. But algorithmically, if they're able to figure that out, that'll be super powerful for these labs.
Yeah.
Because then they can start updating their basically new version of a content algorithm real time.
Like immediately,
which is like what Google does right now, except it's obviously deterministic.
Yeah.
Because it's like learning what you're searching, and then it's like updating its preferences based on that. Like I'll literally be on Revolve, look at like something, and then that will be part of the ads.
Yeah,
and I know that's like not part of the content algorithm, but it's like kind of in the same vein of like
It happens so fast.
it happens so fast, and part of you achieve that with memory, right? But then part of that is like, do we, in the world where we have a continual learning AI model that's like just getting better and better and better, which is kind of like AI doomsday. Maybe
That's like what Elon's going for, right? Like
Yeah.
his whole thing is like he wants it to be real time learning.
Well, I think everyone knows that if we can crack that, that's like cracking ASI.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to say that we are going to be able to crack that. It's kind of just like whether or not the discovery like happens or doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like discovering something like that is not like a bunch of small iterative things. It just like happens. Yeah, like
it's like a breakthrough.
It's a
scientific breakthrough.
Yeah. But yeah, do we want to end this segment with predictions on who we think will win?
Who has the right to win?
Yeah.
I feel like OpenAI agent, and then I think Perplexity Comet will like actually get a reasonable user base, but I don't think it'll ever become like the default the way we see like Chrome right now.
Yeah, I think the only way they can become the default is if they get a deal with Apple. I think that's kind of like one of their looming things.
Yeah.
I do think they have a better product, because I honestly, and I don't know if we want to go into this, but I think Perplexity's search engine is the best if you use the Pro subscription. I think they suck at making the freemium model because their free version is so bad that people don't understand how good their Pro version is compared to their free version, versus GPT's difference between the free and the Pro version is like a little closer to like warrant people switching to Pro.
I actually don't think Perplexity Free is like that bad.
But I think what they do really well is they're really fast. I think they're the fastest search engine, and like GPT is so fucking slow. And so Perplexity gets more of my search queries on that alone. And so,
do you pay for it yourself?
No, I mean I have like some free like trial thing.
We all have the free one.
It's never.
Remember we all got the code?
Yeah, like it's never ended. I've like I've never needed to pay for it. It was like from some X tweet that I sent in the chat, and I was like, just add this to your thing. But yeah, so like in my opinion, I think Perplexity could build a better product. I think they have a team that could beat, but it's just like, are they going to have this the business strategy shake itself out, regardless of if their product wins? Like there's very few times where someone's product alone is the reason why they win.
Yeah, that's true. But I think the difference in this case is as we move towards more agentic flows, I think like correctness and completing a query to someone's satisfaction will end up being more important than how quickly you're able to get there. Like there's so many different like layers of order, because it's like first you have to be able to actually do it. Then after you can do it, you want to like optimize for the best one. Then after that, you want to optimize for the time it takes for you to get there. And so I think there's all of these different layers, but I think that there will be more importance put on like the correctness and accuracy of a task being completed.
I mean, we saw this with OpenAI, like in the search game itself, where like OpenAI had the best engine at first, and then a lot of these users actually caught up to them and made a very, very competitive thing. Even Grok 4 is like very competitive, but it just doesn't warrant the switch over.
No, it doesn't.
Right? And it's crazy because like they were only that much better for about 6 months to a year. We're basically in this like nebulous state of like users changing their habits and choosing what they want to use. And so it's like, who is going to be the first best browser agent, which I'm curious, but yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, I am curious. Anyways.
Maya's still a curious girl. She's a curious girl.